teachers of Reddit, what was the most annoying thing you ever had to deal with in class? Bottle flipping and dabbing. To this day the sound of a half-filled bottle of water landing on the floor fills me with rage. I see a bottle flip and it goes straight in the bin or on my desk until the end of the lesson. My students used to dab as they entered the classroom and one time I dabbed back. They never did it again, haha. Nothing kills a young person shibboleth faster than seeing one of the aged ones do it. Kids using ruler or any other object to reflect light onto the board or your face. It's just irritating, but they act like chimps who have discovered fire and giggle like there will never be anything funnier. I love my job though. One kid in my class figured out how to turn the projector on and off using an app on his phone. That poor teacher never knew which one of us it was. I had a student years ago named Marco. Marco has Tourette's and his tics were usually calling out mom, Lily his sister, and most often his own name. Try teaching algebra when you hear Marco, and without fail a few kids yell Polo all year long. Note, only really annoying for me. Marco thought the exchange was hilarious and was quite the popular kid. Inability to fill in the attendance register. 30 in class, only 27 names on register. Who hasn't filled in their name? We all have. No, you haven't. Who hasn't filled it in? Silence. Start asking individually until register is finally filled in. Amazing how people will argue that they have filled in their name when they haven't. Or when a student is absent and you're just checking with the class, but one of them is adamant that they've seen them today. I teach kindergarten and get this all the time. Where would you have seen him that I didn't? I was placed in kindergarten for student teaching. We had kids insisting that students who were present and in the classroom were not actually there. The principal, easily the most annoying thing. The first school I worked at, the principal would go to every classroom every day, sometimes multiple times per day. He and the vice principal tried to micromanage every aspect of teachers' classrooms. All it did was disrupt the flow of the class and piss off both my students and me on a daily basis. Parents who ask why I've not taught their 2-year-old to read. Dude, if they were ready and we had the staff to sit one-on-one to teach them, I'd love to, but I'm too busy changing them, cleaning and doing pointless paperwork. There is a lot more to learning to read than sitting a kid down and trying to shove books down their throats. Also revenge poopers. Little Johnny got mad because I didn't let him put the Lego up his nose or keep hitting Sally. He goes and poops on the floor and waits for me to find it. You could not pay me enough. I'm a computer science teacher. This is important as my students usually have access to a computer. One student likes to be hated by the other students. So he found an online tone generator and set it to a frequency that older people wouldn't be able to hear, but it would massively annoy his classmates. Thankfully I'm not particularly old and have fairly tuned in hearing from a background in audio engineering, so I could just mute his computer. The most annoying part is that if he put as much effort into his work as he did into creative ways to piss people off, he could do really well. He wants attention, and negative attention is easier to get than positive attention. I work in a middle school and we have a student like this. I caught him being a decent person by just walking to class on time and following dress code, so I complimented him. He freaked out. Then another teacher did the same thing that day. He freaked out again, in a good way. Whenever I see him I make a point to speak with him now. He still purposefully annoys his peers, but it doesn't seem to be his main purpose in school. The country I teach in sells energy drinks to the small children on their break. Then they come into class bouncing off the walls and won't stop talking. The absolute most stressful thing I've ever experienced in my life. Parents, not always in class necessarily, but my district has a bring your parent to school day, which is not supposed to be an opportunity for parents to critique teachers, but definitely ends up that way for some of us. This year at the end of class a parent came up to me and told me that my class was pretty disorderly, even though it was the best they'd behaved all year. Mind you, this was a class of mainly freshman boys, and that she didn't like how many times her own son got up to sharpen his pencil. Oh, okay, thanks. The same parent told my colleague that he should have students who wanted to learn sit on one side of the room, and have students who didn't want to learn sit on the other, and then of course only teach the kids who wanted to learn. The irony in that suggestion was that her son would be on the doesn't want to learn side, but as public educators we're not allowed to say anything, just smile and nod, smile and nod. My students once welcomed a stray dog in the room, where he promptly vomited. The week prior they had a dirty street pigeon in there, claiming it was a pet. It shiz all over. I grew weary. Next time on Janitor Hell. Once during a year 10 maths class I was teaching there was a really bad smell. It smelled like poop. At first I thought maybe someone had just farted, but it was much stronger than that. The students started to move away from the smell and it turned out they were all moving away from one student. It turned out that one of the students in the class struggled from incontinence and had actually pooped his pants during my maths class. I never thought that I would have to deal with that considering I only teach senior high school students. The paycheck. I'm a student, but one of my teachers was telling me today about how his class was critiquing an anonymous essay from a student who took the class in the previous year, and one kid raises his hand and says, "I'd rather circumcise myself with a rusty tin can than read that again." And the guy I was talking to, the teacher, said he had no idea how to respond. I would imagine that tin doesn't rust, you probably meant a steel can. Squeaky chairs. It seems silly, but when chairs squeak every time a kid moves. University level, so I'm not sure if this counts, but he would come to class and watch television shows on his laptop. I don't have an attendance requirement. I asked him to please just watch them outside instead of coming to class. He said he was very sorry and would not do it again. After that he was still pretty clearly watching shows in class on his laptop, with the sound down, but would click away anytime I came near. I don't understand. At least watch it silently with subtitles on. Or just use headphones. Yeah, why wasn't he using headphones? I don't get why you just leave it running on f***ing speakers at uni. I was doing relief supply teaching at an all-boys school in North London. The school had a reputation for being difficult, but never did I expect that I would have to try break a group of 16-year-old boys commencing a game of tug-of-war across the science lab. My mom taught middle school kids with high-functioning autism for a decade. For her it was a toss-up between the boy who wouldn't stop masturbating in class, and the girl who refused to wear pads during her period and just bled all over chairs. Edit to answer the same questions. The boy wasn't just whipping his junk out in class, he did it through his pants or through the pockets. They managed to curb the behavior by banning him from wearing sweatpants and giving him safe objects to fidget with, because I think it was a fidget habit for him. A fidget cube would have gone a long way to helping, I'm sure, but this was 13 plus years ago. Chronic masturbating is definitely really common in autistic kids. It's just that most of them aren't this dedicated. The girl hated wearing pads because of sensory defensiveness, which is common in autistic kids. I sort of understood where she was coming from, a little bit. Pads feel like diapers when you're not used to them, even when you're neurotypical. If you have sensory issues, I'm sure it's so much worse. At first her mom kept her home on her period, then eventually just sent her to school with a cushion and a towel to sit on to avoid ruining school property. Eventually she was pulled out of school and sent elsewhere. She was pretty bright and academically did well, but she was some distance beyond socially inept and clearly needed help. When they don't want to answer my question and the silence through the whole class is deeper than Mariana Trench. Lollipop sticks with their names on. Someone better talk or the sticks come out, and everyone looks to the smart kid to talk. The sticks still come out. I'm not a teacher, but if you're not familiar with Kahoot, it is a game where all the students go on their phone or a laptop and enter a game code and look at the projector to answer the questions on their phone. However, there is a feature that allows you to choose a custom name and it has no filter, unless the teacher manually removes them. Examples of names we use include the teacher's full name, I want to Kahoot myself, and pretty much any swear word that comes to mind. And then when some kids start getting bored after a couple of games, a handful of students will open a website called Kahoot Killer, and they can make up to 10,000 accounts log onto this Kahoot server, and you often get a sudden surge of accounts called Somalian pirates or Mike Hunt flooding into this game and beating everyone. I found an effective solution to this problem was to save the Kahoot results, useful for keeping track of how they're doing anyway, but then showing parents the names at parents' evening. I've had a lot less issues after that.